want the people to think. Count it down. Let's do it. What is up, everyone? You got one more hour here on the Awesemo YouTube channel today. A little show that continues to trip me up to say the name, the NBA Late Slate Sweat and Swap. All the S words in here. Late Slate Sweat and Swap with Spags and a man who you're going to recognize in a moment here as not Greg Ehrenberg, but he's the next best thing we could have on the show. He's Eric Lindquist. How you doing, Eric?
I got consolation prize for all of y'all. Happy Friday. As if this week wasn't bad enough for you. It's me, not Greg. So let's get riding. Let's get rolling. I don't know. I'm just, wow. I had way too much stuff. I didn't have a show or anything for the afternoon. So I was like, let's up the volume and kick it and have some beers. And then everything just kind of like broke at once where trying to figure it all out. So let's take a look forward to the 7 p.m. game out here and get going.
Yeah, guys, make sure you hit that like button here and stay tuned to the show. Obviously, the Live Before Lock shows, the deeper dives, all the content we do here is going to be a little more serious, a little more strict to the guidelines of talking about the best plays in this show, where we're going to talk about the main slate. We're going to give you some of the top plays here, some guys that look better on the late slate than they did on the main slate. But for the most part, the vibe here that you're going to find on all these late slate shows, a little more casual, a little more tilt. And I think, Eric, this is the one thing we can do right now is get the tilts out of the way. Our own Awesemo, I saw tweeted me. I had to do a little birthday Zoom for one of my friends. His girlfriend lovingly set up a surprise Zoom, and I go on Twitter and what do I see? Our own Alex Baker bashing me, saying that he's blaming the slate based on me for jinxing all the under $4,500 players after I revealed my big finding. I was so excited here. I read the columns, as I mentioned on the Live Before Lock show. Bro, every day is reviewing the slates on Awesemo.com. And I was like, you know what? I'm inspired by this. I'm going to dig deeper, try to enhance my process. Look at the things not only that I'm doing wrong, but that others are doing right. So I find this revelation here that pretty much every slate over the last month has had two guys under 4,500, set a rule for it. And then today, Eric, we have Isaiah Stewart, we have Peyton Pritchard holding their genitals, I suppose, rather than playing basketball. So that's my tilt here. How are you feeling about the main slate?
Awful. Awful. I feel awful. No, okay. So I haven't sworn. I haven't sworn yet on the show. Like I'm probably have by accident at some point. But are we allowed to swear on such things? I want to be very careful. I want to tread lightly. We try to keep
it more PG normally during the main shows.
This week has been ass. Here, but, yeah. This week has been pure ass, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Like the last 3 days. Okay, first of all, you have people talking about this Roby thing. I was doing the Late Slate show 2 days ago. So you want to talk about tilt? Let's talk about tilt, because I can tilt right now. Roby, if you knew that was hopping up, like I guess not seeing him in the starting lineup was one thing, but there were like 8 dudes. They had all bigs. Like it wasn't like that big of a deal that Roby wasn't necessarily in the starting lineup. Like it could have been a multitude of reasons. So I didn't like overreact to it. Maybe I should have. And then Thursday, oh my dear sweet Jesus. Like yesterday between Hero, who I didn't even necessarily like, but was getting by default because shooting guard was also ass yesterday. I just absolutely on FanDuel had 22 or whatever it was %. And of course, a lineup that I had, would have been top 5, was looking beautiful. Big old 0 from Tyler Hero. Frank Mason, 65%. Good God. Happy Friday. Isaiah Stewart, I swear to God, if you don't get there in the second half. That's all I have for you today. Take care, everyone. Good night.
I think this is healthy. This is what this show is. I think we're going to talk about the late slate. We're going to get into some of the picks. We're going to follow the news here. We know the Orlando Magic news. No Evan Fournier, no Cole Anthony. I thankfully did my little late swaptimizer on that one. But I'm with you. Yesterday for me, Frank Mason, I had 25 points between me and first place. And I think it was the 4-point player. It might've been the $2 one they had yesterday, whatever the 20 max was that was running really well for me. And Frank Mason, you assume, a point per minute guy for the most part over his career. Nobody left for the Magic. You'd feel pretty good here. And instead we got the 0 straight away from Frank. I'm with you. Like, especially doing these shows, that noise that you just made is horrifying to me.
It's like a gargoyle just sitting under there, like the Antichrist of DFS, just ready to roll. I don't know. It's like a Muppet. It's like I don't know. I just can't even.
You know who I'm not tilting today, though? Well, again, if you're tuning in for the first time here, have no fear. This is going to be a little bit of a different show where you guys know you watch a live before lock. I will speed read through all the news that we need to know today on this show. And moving forward, whenever I'm on here, whenever Eric's on here, we're going to luxuriate in the pain and the joy. Hopefully there'll be some days where there is some joy. And I'm going to take my joy here. And this is something, if you guys watch live before lock regularly when I'm on, I enjoy the talking to chat, so seeing what chat's saying, not just because it helps me understand how a lot of people are thinking about slates, but also for me, there is a certain joy in when you dig your heels in on somebody and they come through. And I do have to say, I feel good that I dug my heels in on Russell Westbrook today. I am I said it on the show. Terry was with me on this. The wash narrative needs to go away if you're playing DFS. There are some players you don't like. There are some players who disappoint more often than not. Totally get that. Andrew Wiggins is also a guy who disappoints all the time. He's not washed, though. He's a guy who just sucks sometimes. And I think we need to somehow say, hey, sometimes these guys suck when situations are, lining up the right way. Like for Russell Westbrook today, no Bradley Beal. He doesn't suck today. What a strange coincidence. And Eric, I know you're as sharp out there. You do the Slate Starter podcast with Ren Pack, who's also another top player in the world. You guys exchanged a lot of great thoughts on there every single day. But to me, just give me your thoughts real fast on Westbrook, the people who were so stoked to not play him today. And how does it feel I assume you played him, but played him at volume. You have to feel good about it. The fact that he just didn't let you down.
Well, in true this week fashion, my pivot was De'Aaron Fox for a lot of things. And now we're looking at him with a big Q tag in the face. So that's enjoyable as well. So I've been trying to figure out what to do here for the last half hour, what I'm going to pull in the trigger. So I've got both my CSV set up to go, whatever. But Russell Westbrook, I was just a little bit over the field. I was right there with you. I don't understand how with Bradley Beal off the floor, you're looking at he eclipses 35% usage. He does everything on a basketball floor for this team. I don't care that he sucks. I think the only thing maybe that I had any concern about was 10 turnovers or something on FanDuel. I really think that was the only way that he was going to completely fail. He's at 44. They're down 19. I didn't expect them to necessarily play well, but playing well in DFS is who cares? He's the guy who does everything on the floor for them. And we have rates, we have history, we have a crazy amount of track record for Russell Westbrook in every situation on every team. He just takes over in these situations. So if you're wanting to fade somebody, there's merit to fading anybody at any point. You can just say, oh, I'm not going to play Isaiah Stewart. I'm just going to hope he fails. And if you have to hope for one person to fail on a slate, that's fine. That's great. But Russell Westbrook was not appropriately owned. He should have been higher owned than what he was.
Yeah. I agree. I think that to me is the whole game of DFS is where you're trying to find these edges here. And it's about winning night after night. There are going to be okay, Semi Ojeleye is one play that I saw was going off a little bit here as our boy Peyton Pritchard, one of the chalk plays that pretty much everybody had today, was failing. And it's really about that daily process every day where I guarantee, I actually did get to Semi Ojeleye yesterday just because of trying to get value in. But I think there are lessons to kind of take away from it that, the Semi Ojeleye plays aren't always as bad as they look, especially when the guy's almost minimum salary. But I think there is sort of a process thing that goes into this. And, our boy Josh does the process show, and you know him if you watch this channel for the years that I've been here. And Josh has been here as well. There is a process to it. And that's what Josh talks about every single day. And it is sort of trusting the value, trying to find those guys here who are a little bit underpriced for what the opportunity is. And I think that's just one of the lessons here that I would try to help you guys out with. And that we really do try to impart here where for us as hosts, I really want you guys to play whoever you want. If you see something here and you think it's going to make you money, play your guys. But at the same time, when people just kind of Russell Westbrook's old, that to me has gotten to the point where I'm having a delirium and I just wanted to talk about it, Eric. And I'm glad we could have this moment here, a little therapy session for us where we just share and tilt together.
I started, you're finishing. This is good for both of us. This is a nice place to be at. I feel can we all just take 1 second and really feel what's going on in this moment? It's palpable. It's
the LA in us is coming through now. We're getting in touch with our feelings. We're meditating, deep breaths out through the mouth.
Yeah. Feeling nice. Feels very, there it is. Now my radio voice is ready to go. This is like that bit on SNL where they're doing the radio show. Oh yeah, sweaty balls. There it is, right there.
So let's talk about the swaptimizing, the moves that you can make here, because that was something I had to do. I mentioned on the Live Before Lock show with Terry earlier that I was going to be pretty heavy on Cole Anthony. I would say as well that, for that spot, there's just somebody who has to do more in terms of ball handling. Vooch is the guy who's going to benefit the most. Certainly gets the usage, certainly gets some assist upside. Also, fantastic rebounder on his own merits. Going to probably find a few more out there. Though really the lack of Aaron Gordon's the big part that's helped him out there. But I would say for Orlando, get into guys like James Ennis, getting to guys like Dwayne Bacon seem like the move for me. Ennis in particular seems like a completely different player when he just has to do something, which is what these players are going to have to do. The one guy that I'm getting a little bit more of that I don't feel great about is Michael Carter-Williams. And I think for a short slate, I could see getting there. Awesemo has him for 25 minutes, but he's coming off of a foot injury. And Eric, I'm curious if you're swaptimizing right now and you're just trying to save some of these lineups here that maybe might be dead. Isaiah Stewart could still salvage. Peyton Pritchard could still salvage. Don't worry necessarily about that. But if you're trying to get away from some of the chalk or to save some lineups that have chalk in it, Eric, what Magic players would you want to get to first and foremost?
25 feels high. We haven't heard about a minutes limit yet, but I'm assuming we might still get something like that before lock. They said that it was going to be like a very restrictive minutes limit, whatever it was. Maybe they're not going to give us a number, but like 18 seems about like the cap for me. Like it's hard for me to give him any more than that. He's not necessarily like a horrendous play at 3,700 over on FanDuel, or he's not like a horrendous play at 4,100. But I'm just going to get to like none of him. He's still only like a 0.81 fantasy point per minute guy. So like, what are we? I don't know. I think there's better ways to go. We also have 3 games. So this isn't your typical just straight up 2 gamer that we're looking at. We have options. We have places to go. I like the Ennis call. I think it's small forward, which is kind of just like, whatever. I think yesterday, small forward is actually a pretty strong position on that 2 gamer. But with Terrence Ross there now and James Ennis, Dwayne Bacon, I like all 3 of those Magic guys. It's kind of just like a mix and match thing for me. We'll see kind of what that ownership gets up to in the next 40 minutes here before we like lock in those lineups. But I have no problem getting to at or above the field on any of them.
Yeah, I'm with you here. It's weird because they actually do have bodies in there now because you get Carter-Williams back. You do have Mo Bamba available or capable of playing minutes. We'll see if he actually does, because that's really the one spot you don't need somebody to pick up a lot of minutes. And it seems unlikely you're going to see Vooch and Bamba lineups together, though. Going against Sacramento especially, probably not the case. But really, I think you can make a case for any of these Magic guys. I know I got Kem Birch in some of my re-swaptimizing, my late swaptimizing on Fantasy Cruncher. A big feature there, a big part of the package on there. And
how's that going for you, by the way? Because we did have the talk where you were a little bit apprehensive about like committing to it in your process, and I was just curious how that was going for you.
Yeah, so it's good. I mean, obviously nights like last night where you look at the results and Frank Mason getting a 95% of lineups wasn't the right move, but at the same time, like process-wise, talking about what we talked about, like I felt good about Frank Mason. Like looking at the numbers and the data I had for him, I thought he would have had a ceiling or actually, a median projection that would have been in the neighborhood of 10x. So to me, that's sort of where things go south sometimes, and you can look at that and go and feel bad about it. But I think in terms of trying to find edge, and also in terms of, trusting my projections that I talk about, and also Awesemo's data that I use too, where I pair the two together to figure out, what's going on, what people are going to be doing. I do feel good about it. I still don't think overall that I would want to late swaptimize every slate, because I do think there can be a bit of over tinkering. And also because of the way that I do things, when I swaptimize on Fantasy Cruncher, I'm able to get, whatever the exposure cap is for my guys. So whatever, for me, that usually is whatever I think their percentage of time is that they hit a target score. And whereas when I'm sorting normally for a full slate, I'm doing that in Excel. So I can get 100% of Vooch, I can get 100% of whatever. So that's one change for me, but it's also one that kind of covers my ass a little bit more. Now we're all saying ass. Oh boy, what an edgy Friday.
Yeah.
But it's
Hi,
good.
Tom, how are you today? I'm well. Thank you. How are you?
Once the show became the swap and sweat, it all got a little edgier, all got a little grittier. That's the way it goes when you're swapping and sweating. But I think it's an important part of the process, though, that I should continue to do more. I still, though, will probably be reluctant, like on slates where there isn't a big news item or one that I think matters, to tinker too much, because the thing that it jumps out, though, Eric, which I will say, and I'll throw it to you again, is that the ownership on these guys, like getting to Stewart yesterday, like I got to, I think 70% of him, and the field only got to 30% because they just had their spots taken up. And I think that to me is one thing where you had the chalk plays in the early games. Like I could see swaptimizing more in those times where you have the chalk plays that people already own. Their spots are locked up now, so they can't get to Stewart. Today, maybe not the best play, but yesterday was a fantastic play. And I think that's a spot too where I would consider swaptimizing a bit more.
Yeah, I had lock button yesterday, not to like brag or anything, because I still lost money, and that's not bragging. So Tyler Hero obviously was something nobody could have done anything with. But like a situation like Frank Mason yesterday too, I think he was never going to be appropriately owned for what it is. As you said, like you have those positions that are ate up. And so like when you are able to look at your lineups, again, there's one thing that I do a lot in the late swaptimizing that you should try out sometime too. If you could just sort it by players, you can like eliminate an entire player, all the lineups from that pool, and you can just swaptimize the other ones. So like I'm able to see if I have both the two, like if 2 point guards, like I had a lot of Russell Westbrook and LaMelo Ball lineups on FanDuel today. I'm able to remove all of those guys from the pool in general, and I'm able to just swaptimize like with Fox, who just got ruled in, by the way, which is hurtful.
Okay, that is important.
Because now I got to go back to that. But there's a way to be able, you can just click on those guys specifically, and you can swaptimize the lineups that you want to. You can also do it by contest. You can also do it by specific lineup. So if there's ones that you're hand building and you have it like in a bunch of single entry stuff, you can click out of those specifically. You can just click on that one lineup, and it'll late swap the rest of them. Like that tool specifically is designed to be able to do whatever you want it to do. Just like an optimizer is in general. Like an optimizer is really only as good as the inputs that you're putting in and being able to set it up your way. So you have your style, and I think it's been very profitable for you going forward. And, you know, for me, I have mine, and I'm constantly tinkering my process and trying to get better. But there's like no one size fits all. Alex has way more lineups than either of us going today, but we still should be able to do the things that we want to with our lineups to say the story that we're telling it.
No, I think that makes some sense. And yeah, there definitely is a degree of customization that goes into it that perhaps maybe, you know, is a thing that it's worth exploring a bit more. And I have, you know, played around a little bit more with clicking them and doing all that stuff and unclicking ones that I feel like look pretty good. I don't want to lose, but that's definitely, you know, a part of it is most of the optimizers, we talk about it for the main slates and just general optimization. And it's the same thing for late swaptimizer too, where, you know, it's a tool giving you the data back that you're putting in, and a tool that's doing what you're telling it to do. And I think that's something to keep in mind with Swaptimizer, and it is a great feature on Fantasy Cruncher. And Eric too, I think if you're doing it every slate, you're probably carving out more slivers of edge every single slate. And I think, you know, even if you lose a little bit, like let's say you had that winning lineup in your initial crunch, you're probably still carving up enough night to night that I think it ends up being more valuable than not.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like the biggest edge, because there are so few that exist in this space now compared to what there used to be. Like back in the day, I feel like I just kind of like jammed in chalk all the time. Like 4 years ago, when I really got into NBA DFS, when, you know, I met Rinpack in a random chat, and I was like, this guy seems like he's pretty good at basketball. I should probably talk to him. And, you know, in the last year and a half, it's been another level from the kid. But it was just a deal where it was like, oh, we should play this guy because he's out and his rates change. And people didn't even do that before. Now you have an optimizer that basically manually does it for you. You don't even have to like tweak much. And then obviously if you get behind the paywall and you end up on Fantasy Cruncher now with Pro, and you're getting it constantly updated every 5-10 minutes as news breaks, it's kind of done for you so well. Just you got to kind of get out of your own way sometimes too. And for me, I'm never going to be able to hand build the way that I want to with 150 lineups, the way that I can in 5 seconds with an optimizer now.
No, I think that makes some sense. And certainly, you know, you've dedicated the time, and guys like Rinpack too. You know, we talk about a lot on the show because Eric's show with Rinpack every day is really one of the great things you can watch on the channel. And Ryan, and to me, you know, has grown more as a player, you know, as much as anybody, at least on our staff, but probably more than anybody in terms of both the actual, you know, you go to Moto Blinders, you look up the rankings, he's soaring up there. But also, you know, just in terms of understanding every part of DFS, like I think there's a lot to learn from that show and from Ryan and Eric's conversation on there. So make sure you're checking that out. Let's talk about some of the news items we got here. And one that came through while we were sort of nickel and diming Michael Carter Williams' time, that this is one that gives me a little bit more hope for him. He's starting, and it seems like with the starting lineup here, Carter Williams, Dwayne Bacon, James Ennis, Gary Clark, who is not going to do anything and is not a point guard, and Nikola Vucevic. This seems like we're seeing Carter Williams go back to vintage point guard Carter Williams in this spot. And even if he does play 18 to 20 minutes at his price, I think if he's going to be a lead ball handler, I mean, he's been a fantasy point per minute guy when he's had that role. I think things have gotten a little bit uglier as he's been more of a wing in this Orlando rotation, especially this year. He's the guy who's trying to stay in the league, but now they need him to ball handle and maybe ball handle more than we would think. How does that feel for you? Does this seem to you like an upgrade, knowing that he's starting and then the minutes get a little more secure and then maybe the point guard minutes also get a little more secure?
God, Alex is that bullish on him, huh? Like that's really the thing that's glaring to me. Like as much as I watch basketball and analyze this stuff, like you get these situations where it's completely unknown. Like there's situations like Cat, who ends up playing 30 plus minutes first time out of the gate after having COVID and not playing for a month. Then you have other guys that come in and play 14 minutes, like Danilo Gallinari, who's coming back from, and it's hard to like sit here and be able to compare injuries or, trade notes back and forth on like, what are the situations where he's going to be playing bigger minutes than we think. I feel like maybe 24 is straddling the line between the 30, between the 18, and you're kind of compromising in the middle. I think that might be a good way of looking at it. This could obviously work out really, really well for you if you pivot to him at 3,700 over on FanDuel. If you somehow weren't on Pritchard or I guess Fox is in now, but I'm saying if you were to like really mix it around in a different way, like I think the two main things I'm trying to do, we still haven't heard about Bagley. And so I'm trying to get to maybe I'll put him back in my pool on both sites and I'll just kind of see where I get to. And if the lineups, like if I'm getting like 20%, I'm just going to have to like drop that down. But if you were to get like 6-8% in a couple lineups that are doing okay, that could really be a difference maker if he does play those, if he exceeds 24 for sure.
Yeah, I think that to me is the thing where a 25-minute projection from Awesemo looks really good. And I think that 25 minutes for MCW gets a little more viable. And I guess while we're talking Orlando, we can go back to Sacramento. And I didn't see, so the news on Fox, where are we seeing that confirmed? Because I just want to make sure.
Let me find it here for you. Let me find it.
We also got news too, while Eric looks that up, that Taurean Prince starting ahead of Jared Allen. They've given up on the two big lineups for now. And that does feel like a bit of a downgrade for both Allen and Drummond. The rates probably get better per minute, but now you're not going to see that court time together, so that gets less secure. And Prince, to me, I think maybe a play. I don't know that I'd want to swap-timize, force my way to Prince, but if you got a little bit more of him, whether it be on the late slate or for swap-timizing the main slate, I do think Prince been more useful in Cleveland than he was in Brooklyn.
Do we got News God in the chat, by the way? Let me pull up chat here as well, because it was 9 minutes ago that we got the news that he was active. I just saw an alert that I got from him 9 minutes ago.
Oh, okay, so was it okay? So if News God posted it, then I feel like that's good enough for me. I'm not seeing it on. I'm doing the full. If you're a fan of vintage Live Before Locks, now I used to do mixed up versions of every name. Old Schmancy Schmabs doesn't have anything yet on Fox, so that's what I was checking to confirm. But if News
Photo Minders was phenomenal, by the way. I'm going to patent that one.
Yeah, that's what we do here. We have to reference the world out there while not giving them a single moment of promotion on our cherished real estate.
We are selfish like that.
Let's talk through the theoreticals. And so if we're assuming Fox is playing, the price point for him up quite a bit. The one thing with him, because of his assist rate, because his usage rates are so high, he dominates possessions per game and on a level that I think people don't even realize, because Fox, a guy that our old pal Bill Simmons, who we talk about sometimes on these shows, loves the idea of trading Fox, letting Tyrese Halliburton have the full run. But we're seeing Fox's best year in terms of being the main vessel for this entire offense for Sacramento, and going against Orlando, whose defense is so much worse because of all the guys they've been missing, all the guys they keep losing here. They're also on their third game, or their third game out of 4 days here. So this spot for Fox, with the price coming up, the ownership on the late slate for him not looking too bad, or a most recent run of ownership at Awesemo, and we can talk about some of the top plays here. Smash the like button here, and if I feel motivated enough by how many likes we get, I'll give you guys some of the top owned plays. But how are you feeling about Fox at his price point on DraftKings? And I don't know if you're doing FanDuel for the late slate too, but give me your thoughts on both sites here, because him being in, I think, is going to drive the ownership down enough, and an ugly price point could do that too.
I was all in on Fox earlier. I think he was probably my highest exposed guy. Look at his usage the last 2 games. This is a guy who's just kind of like starting to assert himself. 35 and 38% usage the last 2. Somebody that has been like sneaky consistent as well. I wrote him up for the Yahoo Cup today, and he just kind of like checks all the boxes, and we've seen some massive ceilings. It's hard. He was like $37 over on Yahoo, and not that we're going to sit around and talk about that here leading up. I don't think anybody's going to be playing the late slate over there. But at a $37 price tag over there, as opposed to like 55 for Doncic or 56 for Giannis, like he has a ceiling. Like he has a crazy, crazy ceiling. We saw that 77-point outburst he had in the past 11. He hasn't had a single game under 28 within that run of games within the last 11. He's gone over 41 in a majority of them, I believe 8 of 11. So man, he's somebody that's tough to get away from. As long as he was going to be active, I was going to have a lot. And so I just uploaded my Fox CSV. I'm ready to rock on it. I had right around 42%. Like he was basically a guy I was taking a way, way overweight position to on the field today.
So what about, do we know for sure Bagley is playing, or is he
questionable still? Haven't seen anything there. Yeah. And I've got the Sacramento beat reporter in case he tweet something, because I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, so the Bagley part I think is a little more interesting right now, and Awesemo did drop down his minutes projection a bit, which he hasn't been closing as much because of Tyrese Halliburton, but that's sort of the expectation I would think, is that Halliburton gets more appealing. And to me, if we do get Bagley out officially, which we'll keep an eye on here, Eric's watching the news, our boy News God in the chat here, having to mute people who unfortunate to see that one muted. News God,
bad.
but yeah, if you're, have no fear, he's not muting anybody. He's only muting some people who are always dicks in chat, which is always chafe my ass.
Don't be
but
a
Sacramento
dick. Ass. There it is again. Spags.
it's
God,
the ass show, the late slate ass show.
You watch your effing language.
Marvin Bagley, though, I do think him being out opens up some things that could really be important for a late slate situation where you're probably going to see more minutes for Tyrese Halliburton, who I would say at his current price point, I don't see myself getting to Halliburton as it currently stands, but I do think with whatever opens up here, potentially a start if Bagley were out, also, a little more room for Barnes to have, solid results here. Holmes, I think, gets more appealing with more rebounds to grab. I think this really makes everybody in Sacramento look a little bit better than they do now for me, where like, I'm going to be on Fox. I'm with you on that one. I think too, him having his game time decision / key tag. What's the news?
What happened? I literally didn't get an alert.
Oh yeah, what is Tyler just wanted a gong.
Testing 1 2 gong. Testing.
We don't know what the gong's for. We got to know what the gong is.
That was a false gong, false alarm gong.
Oh, okay, so he's active. Bagley is active. There we go.
Bagley's active. Okay.
Now. That's how you can go on mic if you want to yell at me. I feel like that's a late slate exclusive. You can just pop on here and yell at us. Instead of just leaving me confused.
He doesn't have Jordan Klein privileges yet. He can't do that.
That's true. Jordan has earned it with the sweat equity. Tyler, our other boy behind the scenes here, just earning it day by day. But yeah, that's okay.
He's
so
the me of behind the scenes, just getting whipped every 5 seconds, just getting just tarnished on air, or except for not on air, but same thing.
Laffy would never tolerate that shit, Tyler. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. If you start making gog noises,
we need a swear jar, like New Girl. We need a swear jar. That's the new late night show bit. We just like prop it up like right here next to the computer. Just swear jar.
Then it defrays some of your Isaiah Stewart losings over the course of a year, I suppose.
He is ass.
So I guess we don't need to worry about the theoretical then. Bagley being in, maybe a little bit of a decreased run here for to believe the Awesemo minutes projection on 23 minutes. Doesn't look the best here, but Sacramento otherwise for you, Eric, anybody jump out being worthwhile given that we've talked about Fox. Hield's always a guy who projects pretty well for me, and I feel like that does tend to work out sometimes and sometimes work out really poorly. But I feel like Hield I would go to. I don't see the need for Barnes. I don't mind Holmes if you're playing a lot of liners for the late slate, but what's a priority besides Fox on Sacramento?
Harrison Barnes is a priority for me. 37 minutes, 6,700. I think if you're going to see any kind of a limitation, it could just be even like 3-4 minutes on each end from Bagley, who they've basically tried to remove from planet Earth over on that team. They just hate the man. So between Whiteside, between Barnes, they get a little bit extra run, 36, 37, 38 minutes. Like the guy plays crazy amount of minutes. He can pop an upside in random spots too. This is kind of a different Harrison Barnes that we're seeing this season. Still only around like a 0.9 fantasy point producer, but like 6,700 over on FanDuel and 6,400 over on DraftKings. I feel like he's somebody who goes under-owned almost every single slate, just in terms of like the type of player that we see. Given I understand that Fox has been awesome, 11%, 10% usage the last two, but if you look kind of in that middle stretch, there was 6 of 8 games where he was putting up 20 or more. So there is an upside there just from scoring volume if you were to get it going in any spot. And they just kind of keep feeding him in those places. Fox is happy to just rack up assists too. So I have no problem playing him and Fox together. I have no problem just getting to way overweight position on Barnes.
People also, EMAC, our old pal EMAC, demanding a 3-man booth with the news god chiming in. We're open and doing whatever here. We're trying to make the late slate show a little bit different. So I think cutting the news god here, berating us with news when we we don't know it correctly, I think that's a bit I'm willing to revisit here. I'm a man all about the bits, as Eric knows better than anybody. That's what I live for.
I like how somebody was like, who's your source? And then news god just puts me. I'm the source. Like, I am source. I am God. Hear me roar. There it is.
And there's the sound effect that tells me that Tyler is not only paying attention, but paying more attention than I am. It's money time here on the Late Slate Show. And if there's a slate going on where we're doing a live show in the last hour and I am on here, it's money time. And guys like Josh or Greg, they don't buy into money time like I do. They don't buy into the religion of it. But the good news for you guys is because I'm going to give you guys the top 5 owned plays on DraftKings and FanDuel for free. So if you want to pay it forward, hit the like button now, and always do that on Awesemo shows. It makes us as hosts feel good. It also helps us get seen by more people, and it's just a nice thing to do for all the people who, whether you're on this channel or not, who are just putting out content for you every single day. Top 5 owned plays on DraftKings, according to Awesemo. And of course, you can always get these yourself at awesemo.com/join. And the top 5 plays are only a part of it. We have every single player on the slate projected for their ownership and of course their actual projections. So make sure you're going to awesemo.com/join and checking out all the packages on there. Nikola Vucevic, number 1 on DraftKings for the late slate, 60% expected ownership. Damian Lillard, number 2 at 44%. Dwayne Bacon up to number 3 at 41%. Terrence Ross, number 4 at 41% as well, but that one's rounded up. And then Chuma Okeke coming in at number 5 at 35%. Eric, honestly, I could see it projection-wise how Okeke could pop up a little bit more. And for whatever it's worth, in college, I did do the research during the preseason on Okeke a little bit more because I'm just trying to figure out in the preseason how guys are going to perform is a big part of that equation. And Okeke's usage was a bit higher in college, was a bit higher in a situation where he had the opportunity to do it. So I think it wouldn't shock me if he did have a nice day here, but he is the guy out of this top 5, Eric, for DraftKings that I think I would want to get under a bit more. I would rather have and take the stab on Michael Carter-Williams coming off the foot injury.
I mean, Dwayne Bacon is 41.4%.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Terrence Ross is 40.9%. Yeah, I like Bacon. I don't like this Bacon at 41%. That is for sure. Okeke, 34.6. I was higher on him yesterday. I think he played pretty well. I think that's just kind of recency bias plugged in a little bit there. He had a pretty decent outing, but God, I would much rather just go way, way, way over on Terrence Ross and just sit lower on Bacon and Okeke for sure out of all those guys. I mean, Terrence Ross. So if there's anything that's going to go wrong with Michael Carter-Williams, like if he's going to play 16 minutes, Terrence Ross is going to be the ball handler for this basketball team. Not a guy who passes the ball by any means, but he's going to be handling it for sure. I'm probably happy to just get way over. I'm shocked Terrence Ross is this low. I would say that I was kind of expecting him to be the guy that was up into the 60% range, 50% range. I suppose that's just the effect of the Michael Carter-Williams news and not being in the starting lineup, but he's never in the starting lineup, so I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Terrence Ross, to me, the main thing with him is that he's always been a guy who soaks up a lot of the usage when one of Fournier or Gordon is out. And Ross hasn't, spiked as much of an upside, both in terms of usage and actual production this year. But really, if you are going to shoot yourselves into this game and going against Sacramento, Ross is going to get up some ugly shots, but he is going to get up shots in that second unit. Whereas Okeke is probably going to see a lot of time with Ross. And I do think that, to me, that does make Okeke, with the ownership going to him, I think Ross, as Eric just said, might be a direct pivot on him just because there's only so many possessions to go around that second unit. And Ross is going to take a lot of them. Like, I don't think Okeke is a safe play at all. I get wanting to take the value. I think that he's going to pop up a lot with projections, but I agree with you. I'd rather find the money to get to Ross. And I also do think Bacon's not a bad play. Like, he's been shooting, he's been getting the minutes, and he's been also getting a little lead ball handler time, which might go away because of Michael Carter-Williams. But I think Bacon, I'd prefer Bacon to getting to Okeke too. And if I'm wrong about Okeke, so be it. But I just don't see the Okeke thing.
Okeke than playing I'm just kind of going down to somebody there's really nobody in his price range that isn't a Magic player, which is kind of the interesting part. Like Xavier Tillman's different position. I'm kind of going down to the bottom end of this ownership. I guess I would rather play him than Tyus Jones. I would rather play him than I guess it's kind of just a product of the position and where he's listed salary wise. I think that might be part of why he is higher owned. So I'm looking at getting pivots up and down. So whenever you have somebody like that that's going to be coming in large, like I'm just going to remove him from my 2-game. Oh God, what happened?
There's the Kong. Yeah. So it turns out, so it is a situation where News God was right. De'Aaron Fox is active, but he is not starting. The starting group for the Kings is going to be Halliburton, Hield, Glenn Robinson, Barnes, and Holmes. So no Bagley starting, Halliburton starting. Eric, how does this change everything for you? Because I will say you probably shouldn't be playing as much Fox as you did. I assume that's going to be a swap for you, but Halliburton to me now looks like a play that I think you can get to at his price point.
As an Iowa State alum, there was never anything other than lock button Halliburton with that news. Like there's no way for me to get away from getting as much of him as possible. If you have, again, we have 3 games coming up here. He is the guy you want to pivot to. There's only 25 minutes. He is going to be so low owned. So start piecing together. Again, if you're hand building, this isn't going to be that hard. If you have multiple spots open, you have like Vooch, you could go down to Drummond or not Drummond, that game's locked, but you could go from like Vooch down to Cantor or something of that sort, and then pay up at other spots. Dylan Brooks is going to be 1,500 less over on FanDuel. That was a guy that I've kind of like pieced together, but that was with Fox and Lillard, and I had kind of like a 3-man deal that I had combined to put together. Man, this Fox thing just got nuts again because I just uploaded those lineups with him in. And Halliburton, Barnes too. Barnes is going to see an increase in that usage big time. I'm going to run it on off court right now so that I can speak a little bit more eloquently about exactly what we're looking at. I'm just going to take Fox off the court here. See who the direct beneficiaries are. Marvin Bagley. Yeah, so that's interesting. Harrison Barnes, 3.7% usage increase with Fox off the court this year. He's the second highest beneficiary other than Corey Joseph, 4.1, but I still don't have like a crazy ton of interest other than on DraftKings where you're just looking to punt. And like Corey Joseph, I like more than like Conquer at 3K now.
Yeah, I think that. So I would say, and I think you were sort of saying it, but I just want to fully lay it out here. I think Halliburton now, because we talked about the swap optimizing, if you had enough room here, and I actually might, I think you need to get Halliburton in. Like he's the swap optimized play, because I think what you were saying before about, Halliburton really getting a lot of the opportunity, but also, I mean, he was projected for low single digit ownership on the main slate. So if you can somehow get to 3x the field on Halliburton, that to me is now the most direct way. Really, a lot of the Kings see like Hield, I think benefits a little bit too. I think, we're going to see less usage for Halliburton. I would say Holmes benefits, Barnes benefits. Like I think everybody benefits here because Halliburton's not going to have a 30% usage rate. I mean, on the year, he's been a 16% usage rate guy. Like, I don't think it's going to get too much higher. Maybe he gets to 20.
But he has a 33.6% assist rate. His assist rate goes through the moon with Fox off the court. So for me, like just from a DFS perspective, like maybe his usage isn't going to see it, but his assist rate is 33.6% in how many minutes is that? That is in 287 minutes. So we have a decent enough, like that's more than like a 40-minute volume. Like Halliburton's been playing a lot of the backup point guard. So I really, really like jamming Halliburton in. There's not enough Halliburton you could get to on the main slate that I would disagree with.
Yeah. So Eric, you asked me what I thought, like how, if I would swap optimize or whatever. I'm going to swap one more time here because I'm with you. I do think that Halliburton, and actually I'm going to give him a boost in the assist rate too. I'm taking the minutes projection that Awesemo, I think, just put out here. And I'm going to make a swap here, but we still have Fox getting minutes. So I'm just going to. Yeah.
So let's just talk out what we're doing here a little bit. So if you're over on Fantasy Cruncher, the first thing I do is I just click that left icon. I also change the projection to 0 just in case, because sometimes it'll accidentally end up sneaking back into your lineups. That is the worst feeling on planet Earth when you do that. So make sure you unclick his name. Then again, if you think that he's going to play, he's going to be like 1% owned at this point in time, or maybe like still 5% because people just aren't going to react to the news in general because it's Friday night. This is like the best night this could happen on too, I think. Overall, people are doing other things. They're not really necessarily always paying attention. I feel like that and Sunday's the best day to play NBA DFS, but I digress. So remove Fox. You manually boost Halliburton. I'm going to kind of combine. I have my own little set of projections. I'm going to combine it here with Alex's and Fantasy Cruncher and put everything together and run a queue and
for
see
me,
exactly.
running a little half-ass swap, I got Halliburton to a 39 projection, and that was not even adjusting his rates. That was just his normal rates here, and just giving the minutes to guys like Corey Joseph, to Glenn Robinson, to Kyle Guy should get a few more minutes here, one would think. But yeah, I think Halliburton looks very safe to me, and certainly for cash, if you were for some reason playing late slate cash, which, you know, God bless you if you're playing cash for late slates too. I think cash wise looks fantastic, and I agree. Like for a main slate, I think here's the question, and this is one we've talked about a few times, Eric, but is there more value to Halliburton on the main slate than there is on the late slate, with the assumption that people are going to have heavy Halliburton on the main slate, or on the late slate rather, but on the main slate, they're going to have none?
People are making their lineups for late slate right now. They're going to see that news and they're going to be like, oh, I didn't get Halliburton on the main slate. I should play him on the night slate. And Halliburton was already going to carry ownership. So he has 50 times more value on the main slate, where there's 11 games. And now he's a guy who goes from like a 27 projection. I have him for 38. So you have me beat by one, which is crazy, because I nuked it, which is, I think, the opposite of Josh's nerf term. So I nuked it up to 38 and made sure that I got as much as I possibly could there. The other main beneficiary, Buddy Hield, I'm kind of like starting to get more on him. 5,900 on FanDuel. It's easier for me to get up to him for just 700 more off of Dylan Brooks than it is to do anything else here. So I think that's kind of the main situation. God, we've only really talked about Sacramento, but this game is so much more interesting than everything else going on here at the moment.
Yeah, and also, I'm just going to lock Halliburton in the lineups that I can get him in. I think it's going to be my move, because he's so low, and I think now we are, as we talked about earlier, I had a ton of Isaiah Stewart. I had 100% Isaiah Stewart today. Also had a lot of Peyton Pritchard, and I think a Halliburton big game for me is going to be the spot that, maybe he busts, maybe he doesn't work out, but because what we talked about, he's not going to be on the main slate. I think this is the salvage point here, is that you might be able to save some lineups here by just going to Halliburton.
This is the most important thing I'm going to probably ever say on the show ever, and it just is what it is. You make the best decision that you have with the news that's in front of you. You always do the best that you can with the news that's in front of you. You can't always look in hindsight. Halliburton could play like ass. That's been the word of the day. We're going to say just flat out, Halliburton could be terrible. But the fact that this news comes so late gives you such a strong opportunity to make money that you did not have before. The fact that you were by your computer, that you're watching this show, that you have an opportunity to late swap onto a guy who should be 30% to 35% owned on a main slate had this news come out at 3:30 out here on the West Coast, 6:30 on the East Coast. That is the edge. That is the game that we're playing. That's why we late swap. That's why we preach it. And for me, the slate starter in general, one of the things that's difficult for me is I always want to help people. I always want to make something that's helping people. And it's very difficult sometimes to help people when you're analyzing games 18 hours before a slate locks. So I always try to say, pay attention to news. News God is your friend. Pay attention to exactly what you're doing with your optimizer, making sure that it's set up that you can make changes fast to account for said news, and then you can make money. That is how you end up having the advantages. Like if you go back and look at like Sahil Sood back in the day when he was able to mass swap out 1,000 lineups or whatever it was at center, that Orlando Magic center situation. I mean, it's like probably one of the most famous situations that's ever happened for DFS. It was day and night. That's kind of, we're getting the small fragmented version with lesser volume and everything else, but this is your best opportunity to make money by going way overboard on these kings in this late slate. There's not a single one that I wouldn't be having interest. Like even Bagley, who I had zero interest in, I'm going to get a little bit now. I just am, because he could just take over a game and decide to go nuts too. He's the one who actually has the highest usage rate spike with Fox off the court.
Yeah, so I think some interesting wrinkles here for this slate, and I got to 35% of Halliburton in my main slate now, or actually no, 39%, and I feel pretty good about that number, and I will live and die with Halliburton now to bail out the other lineups. Let's keep talking about the rest of the slate here, and Eric's going to be making some tweaks here. I'll make some tweaks too as we go, so I'll fill a little bit of air here for Eric, but let's talk about Cleveland-Portland, because Damian Lillard's a chalk play today, and at least in the most recent run of ownership, things are going to move around because of Fox not starting and the assumption he probably won't play much. I do think that Taurean Prince looks pretty decent to me now that I'm looking at this number a little more closely. He looks solid. Andre Drummond, I think per minute gets a little better. Certainly a risk here that he somehow loses minutes, because you could see better defense from Allen. You could see more switchability from Allen. There are some ways Drummond loses some sort of opportunity here in terms of his actual court time. But I think Cleveland, to me, Prince is a guy that actually I don't mind getting a little bit more of now. I think he projects pretty well, and he's been. This is me not actually changing his rates for Cleveland on the day because I didn't think he'd be an important part of the day. But I do think with him being better in Cleveland than the Brooklyn rates I have him in on right now. To me, Prince looks good, and Drummond, I feel like maybe a little sneakier here because I think people have been really reluctant to play him with the court time being shared with Jared Allen.
So I was a little light on the main slate on him, but I still have enough. I still have, around 16% over on FanDuel. What was his main slate ownership when it got refreshed? I didn't refresh it right before the 4:00 lock for us. Did you?
For Drummond, I don't have it anymore.
Okay, yeah.
Probably not high. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, but enough at 8,200 where people were going to get there. And I'm trying to figure out exactly, he's kind of the carnage for me right now because going to Holmes and then getting off of Brooks is kind of the way that I'm getting to all of my Halliburton exposure. Like right now, it's almost like a perfect 1,500 or 1,600 swap here. And so I guess on the main slate to address it, I'm going to just have way less Drummond than I had even a second ago. And I was already not super ecstatic. I try not to read into these games where there's massive blowouts, like in a first quarter where everything goes completely haywire for a team and Drummond only plays 19 minutes. We saw 34 the other day where he was playing alongside Allen. So I'm not going to overreact to a one game situation. But I have to say that I expect his rates to go down with Allen starting alongside him. The main thing you're trying to do is get a couple extra minutes of Drummond at a 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy. If you got 4 more minutes of that far outweighs him being 1.5 only playing 28 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. And any other interest for the Cleveland players? I feel like, we're going to burn through the other parts of the slate because honestly, for the most part, it wasn't as important as the Sacramento news was. But Cleveland, again, Prince to me looks okay. I wouldn't get to Allen now. His price sort of reflects the opportunity that he had playing more court time alongside Drummond. Garland, I'm not too bullish on. Sexton, I think gets a little more appealing too. The deeper dive, they talked about it earlier today where playing Allen and Drummond together is going to clog things up for Sexton in a way that I think having these guys out, maybe Sexton gained some appeal, and he already projected fairly well for me. But anybody else for you on the Cavs?
No, not really, not anymore. I think they're still going to also be okay owned, not crazy high owned by any means, but they're going to be over owned compared to where they should be with this late news on Sacramento. So I'm just taking an overweight approach to that entire game. I'm going to sprinkle in other spots. Of course, on a 3-game slate, if that one game doesn't perform well and the other two, you saw that LA, Oklahoma City and the LA Detroit game both go to overtime. And you were just kind of basically with your hand in your pocket screwed the other night. And that can happen in any random situation. But that game is out of control with value. People can play bad and outperform Colin Sexton at this point in time. Halliburton, for cheaper, can play poorly and still outperform Sexton with above average game. And that's kind of where I have a difficult time trying to, even on a 2-game or a 3-game slate, trying to really hammer him in. He's going to be appropriately owned still. He's probably one of the main guys that people are going to recognize. I'm just going to do a hard pass on most everybody there outside of I'll maybe get a little bit, but Drummond and Taurean Prince, because he's sneaking into that starting lineup now, and then maybe a little bit of Allen now that they're not starting alongside each other.
Yep, I think that's fair. Portland side, let's talk about these guys real fast. I think Enes Kanter is a particularly strong play today. Ownership wise, didn't seem too heavy owned in the most recent round of ownership. And actually, let me double check to see if we got one here. Because this is going to be interesting. Let's refresh
this
the
whole
wrong
thing
one.
is interesting. This is honestly though a lot of fun. I'm having way more fun now than I was before the start of the show when crap was going haywire.
So here's an update to the top 5 owned plays, which we were getting to and then got distracted by all this news. But right now, the ownership that's projected on Awesemo.com. And again, these get updates throughout the night. Alex is playing all night long. All of our founding team, our tech team, they're paying attention to everything here. So there are updates pretty fast after all these things. It's now Terrence Ross, number 1 at 56%. Number 2, Vooch, rounded up 56%. Number 3, Dwayne Bacon on DraftKings is 50%. Damian Lillard, number 4 at 46%. And James Ennis now number 5 at 44%. Halliburton under-owned on the late slate too, 36% for him on DraftKings.
Love it. I'm ecstatic. A lock button. I just hit the lock button. That's fun. That's a fun feeling.
On FanDuel, we got Lillard number 1 at 74%. Number 2, Anthony Davis, 67%. Number 3, Terrence Ross, 56%. Number 4, James Ennis at 52%. Number 5, LeBron James at 46%. I do have to say, I got Anthony Davis I only did a couple lineups for the late slate because, mental fatigue is a real thing here, and I don't want to kill too much money trying to fill a show here with Eric. Because
I know.
We give up a little bit of our profitability every time we do these shows. But I do think getting to Davis a lot easier now with the value out there and with going to Halliburton instead of Fox. I think he gains in some appeal here. But Eric, is there anybody that you're seeing, you're running your final optimizations now, I'm sure, anybody that you're seeing that you're going to get more of now because of the situation and how you were heavy Fox and now you are not going to be heavy Fox?
Yeah, I don't really have a choice. It's very sad. I'm pretty sure. I mean, Anthony Davis is a product of the position. The position over there is just completely horrendous, and you have such a stark drop off from Anthony Davis to anybody else. Covington 6,700 doesn't project out well. Allen 6K not starting. No thanks. Like in terms of where the field's at there, it feels like a play at the top and punt down. Bagley, I mean, he is 100% in, right? We 100%.
No, we don't know that for sure yet.
We don't know that
for sure. He's not starting, and I think our boy News God is watching the warm-ups to try to see, but I think he said they aren't warming up either, so it looks like it may be closer to being out, but they haven't been ruled out.
Oh, God. All right, so thank you. That's kind of the main thing that I wanted to know, because I was getting to a lot more Bagley when I plugged in his rates, and it was not a good feeling because I didn't think we had that confirmed, but wanted to double check. Oh boy. Yeah. So power forward on FanDuel, like Anthony Davis, just lock him. He could get 30. I say this a lot, but like those top end studs, when they get over 3K in these short slates, they could go for 35, have a bottom 10% outcome game and still be optimal. So just go over the field. I know you want to get tricky. I know it's better to get cute and you're trying to make a different lineup, and you can still leave 2K on the table, but play Anthony Davis in your lineup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's got 21% projected ownership for him on DraftKings. I find it hard to believe he gets there just based on the fact that people don't pay enough attention to these things, or are afraid to swap, or lazy to swap. So I think that's a part that we talked about on here quite a bit. Memphis for you, anybody jumping out? Because Joe Val, I think, is interesting, but people in chat are pointing out AD being back in, I think, is good in terms of size, is bad in terms of the fact that Jonas is not a matchup for him. I mean, by any stretch, certainly Gasol he can hang in with, but even Harrell, like I think there are some ways for Jonas to lose minutes. That said, 15% projected ownership on the late slate. I do think Jonas looks pretty good. I also think Kyle Anderson looks appropriately owned in the late slate, but for the main slate, I would say a little bit undervalued. He gains pretty big usage bumps and also more secure minutes because of no DeAnthony Melton, no Brandon Clark as well. But Memphis wise, I think my priorities would be Kyle, Jonas. I don't see John Morant being one of my guys, but how do you feel about Memphis here, Eric?
I mean, Kyle Anderson's a guy that I'm still kind of tilted by. He went 6 for 8 for 3 the other night when he was super popular, and I wasn't like super in love with that situation. He just kind of spiked a shooting upside. I feel like the 5,700, I'm going to be light on him over on FanDuel for sure. You know, I'm only playing like 20 lineups here in the evening slate. Over on DraftKings, I would be fine getting to a little bit because it's contrarian 6K, but he'll still be appropriately, I would say appropriately owned for that price. So maybe I might just be light on that too. I'm also getting a lot of lineups. I'm just going to throw this out there too. I'm getting a lot of 5 Sacramento player lineups on DraftKings, and I am fine with it on a 3-game slate. I normally would like be completely abhorrent by it, but it's projecting so much higher for me now that I said abhorrent. That's a good word.
I don't think you wouldn't be abhorrent by it. Abhorrent means you hate something. You find something abhorrent.
I do hate.
So you
6K.
Wouldn't be abhorrent. You would find it abhorrent.
There we go. I would find it abhorrent. There we are. Correct.
I don't know why I would never do this on a regular show. I don't know why the late slate.
Because you feel like you can belittle me. It's fine. It's fine.
Would never do that. Greg Ehrenberg, that guy, you could set a watch him using the right word.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of ashamed of myself at the moment. It's fine. Now I'm gonna sweat for the next 7 minutes as if I wasn't sweating already. I'm fine with, getting a little bit there. I'm just gonna be light on it kind of the whole way. Tyus Jones, no thank you. Conker's the guy that I was getting the most of, but I'm gonna probably end up a little bit lighter there now too, because I don't need the 3K guy. as much as what I did before because of how well some of these Sacramento guys are projecting for me.
Lakers, we talked about Anthony Davis being the play to jam in, but we also got a question in the premium Slack about Montrezl Harrell, who I want to make sure I give credit to. Keith asking the premium Slack about Montrezl Harrell, do you think he's a good play? I would say for me, no, not with Anthony Davis back in. I don't see a single Laker I like other than Davis because of the fact that people weren't going to be playing him, but really everybody else I would avoid. Eric, any Lakers for you, and any Montrezl Harrell thoughts with him? To me, price is up because of Davis not being in. I don't see the ceiling.
I only have LeBron and okay, beautiful. Thank you. Can we gong that? We got to gong that, right?
But if we can't hear the gong, what's the point of the gong, Tyler?
My Lord, guys, what a quality production we're putting together this evening. Just a quality.
So smash that like button here because things get a little looser. Yeah, hit it, obliterate it, tease it, do whatever you need to do. We got an either or here from Boss Bruh asking Lillard and Bacon or Morant and Halliburton. Now, I still think for me it's going to be Halliburton. I don't love Morant today, but he still projects well enough. I think it's Morant and Halliburton. I'm just 100%. This is his magnum opus. Did I use that correctly for you? I think so. I like the idea of him also playing in a little tux. I think that would be adorable for him.
Would be.
But the thing with Halliburton, and I think people maybe, especially given the slate, maybe you look at Peyton Pritchard and you go I don't want to play another. For some reason, I'm doing a lot of hands on hips gestures today.
Luckily, I wasn't looking at it. I didn't have to miss it. Womp, womp. I'm just sitting here swapping.
But anyway, people are doing a lot of, I don't want to play another point guard who's coming in and expected to be good after Pritchard. But Halliburton's actually been that dude all year, and probably you could make the case he deserves more run, but Fox is so good, you can't take it away. So going to Halliburton, I think, is a priority here. And the fact that Awesemo has him under 40% owned on DraftKings, for a late slate in particular, and for one where the news is not there, you should just be jamming Halliburton in. And if he bombs, you can come yell at me on Twitter at Chris Spags. Yeah. But really, you could yell at Eric.
My DMs are open. Everybody yells at me anyway. I'm fine with it. Yeah. I can take it. I can take the abuse because in the end, I hope you know that all I'm trying to do is be helpful. I think that's the goal. I could be doing a lot of other things right now in my life. I guess maybe not necessarily pandemic time, but I love the ability to help people do something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about this. I would not give you any advice that I'm not going to do myself. I will not have a single lineup on any main slate that I wouldn't be capable of getting Halliburton into it, without being completely nuts and leaving $3K on the table. But, I will have Halliburton in every possible lineup that I possibly can, without fail. And that's just the way that it is. And if it doesn't work out, I promise you, I am just as upset as you are.
And we had some showdown questions earlier because I think there's a big Memphis Lakers showdown, but I didn't play it because that's, again, we sort of are trying to mitigate our exposure for the most part as things go crazy here. And then we have the ability to fix our main slate lineups, but I'm looking through it now for DraftKings. And I would say in terms of priority plays, man, the value on this one is not great. You could see more Marc Gasol at 2,400. I feel like that's a play I don't mind on there, just because of the fact that, Harrell's certainly not a good matchup for Jonas Valanciunas, but it also goes the other way where Jonas could absolutely murder Harrell on the boards, and AD coming off an injury. He's not playing the 5. He's not playing the 5 that hard anyway, normally, but especially today. I think going to Gasol would be one. Trying to think anything. I still think Kyle Anderson to me looks good for a showdown type of lineup. I think people won't get to the 7,200 price point on DraftKings. Anybody, I know, Eric, you're finishing your stuff here, but showdown
Whiteside is the one guy that we haven't even talked about whatsoever. I would rather play 100 lineups with Hassan Whiteside than one with Marc Gasol at this point. Just because of the opportunity.
Showdown only.
Oh, showdown. I'm so
Lakers,
sorry.
Memphis,
I had that. Yeah, no, I had that covered. I apologize. I think because of the way that game sets up, Kyle Anderson is somebody that I would be much more interested in playing in a showdown situation and being able to spark it within that game. Also, his price point was kind of an interesting thing where he was sitting right below Schroeder, right above Harrell. And I like him way more than I like either of those plays with Anthony Davis in. Just kind of looking at the ownership of that. I would rather that would be a situation if I wanted to get my Kyle Anderson exposure on today, I would do it in this showdown slate.
Yep, I think that's fair. I think, at his price on the showdown, I think to me, he's the kind of guy that opens up a little bit of salary, still has a ceiling to get you to 30, 40 fantasy points. And for a showdown, I think that could be worth its weight in gold. Let's see if we got any other final questions here. If you got questions, drop them in chat. Thoughts on Ja Morant? We talked about him briefly earlier. I think he projects well for me. He hasn't been a priority play for me at all, really. And part of the reason why for me was that I really thought he was going to have an outlier day when Jonas was out, just because Jonas is such a presence in this team where, he's dominating the ball in the glass. He's getting offensive rebounds. He's getting the ball in the post. He's taking possessions up at the top of the key, and it didn't happen. And I think because of that, for me with Morant, I think this team is crowded enough that I don't see Morant being a priority play for me. That said, I'm ready for him to go off any day. I just don't know against the Lakers. It's it. But Eric, do you have any feel here for Ja Morant? Do you find him to be worth more getting higher on the field then, or not?
Yeah, I'm just not crazy interested in general. Like Kyle Anderson's been cutting into it a little bit. I keep saying it. I'm just going to be riding and dying. I'm pretty much completely invested 100% within this Sacramento game. I have 42 lineups. I have like only 2 shares of Ja Morant on FanDuel now. I don't know. I feel like there's just other ways that I can go between Lillard, between some of these other pieces. Oh God, we just locked. There it went. Oh crap. Did you want to watch somebody solely with their butt? Oh yeah, I got half of them in. I got half. Oh. That's okay. That's okay.
Poor Eric.
That's
Eric,
okay.
If you want to have one more tilt monologue, you can. You didn't get
one's good for tonight. I feel like I want to be employed next week. So I think it is best that I go ahead. All you. Here we are.
Well, we appreciate you guys watching. There was one point recently. Now we have 420 watching. Wow, what a good note to go out. And we had 469 for a while. I'm pleased with the numbers we're hitting. Make sure, a little dance for everybody. This is my dance. I did like a TikTok dance where
get it out to the window.
But we appreciate you guys watching, because this is how the show is probably going to be moving forward. We're going to try to make it a little more fun. Going to have a lot of me on here, a lot of Eric on here, a lot of Greg, and then we'll have some EMAC as well, your old pal. We'll be mixing everybody in, but we want to make sure to keep this one feeling a little different, feeling a little more lively, so you could deal with the chaos along us, and maybe there'll be a tilt moment here where one of us will have to do a monologue lamenting our lineups in the beginning of each show. We appreciate you guys watching. I'll be back tomorrow doing the deeper dive. Eric, give the people your plugs at Eric Lindquist. Follow Eric, get him going on there, because Eric is going to be putting in a lot of hours on this YouTube channel, and he does a great job. So give the people all your plugs.
Oh my goodness. Slate Starter, that I do the podcast with Ren Pack. I do the Slate Starter article, which is kind of your early intro to the slate, to be able to look at, either strategy or picks that I'm kind of looking at. So kind of like dive into both avenues there. I do the prop report for Odd Shopper. I do the prop report short. I do live streams. I'll be doing the tip off with you and Greg Ehrenberg and Kayla Canarum. So we'll be hitting that up, and as many late slates as I can handle. I'm getting it going. This is nice. This is fun.
It's a high energy show. So thank you to Eric, and thank you to you guys. Follow me at Chris Spags, follow at Eric Lindquist, follow at Awesemo_com, and check out tomorrow. I'm back on the deeper dive, the Saturday deeper dive, where we get a little sillier than actually, no, we just do the exact same thing Lofty and Adam do, but slightly less competent. Me and Greg Ehrenberg tomorrow. So watch that. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy your nights. Have a great weekend. Bye.